It's time for a little Saturday morning fun time! Your show manager is Martin Acosta Santana and John Aaron Schmidt. And your producer is Martin Acosta Santana. I'm your announcer, the Comic Relief Crusader. And now, your hosts, Tom and Gerry. Gary.
It's not rocket science. Just say yes and we'll move on.
Oh, yes, it really happened. We're doing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's not, you're not dreaming this. It's really happening.
At last, at long last.
We pushed this thing off so much, it seemed like it was never going to happen.
Oh, imagine if I lose power in the middle of the slideshow.
It's sort of like, what's funny is like Teague would like message me, "Are we doing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles this week?" And I go, "No."
Yep. I got a lot of other movie viewings out of it. RoboCop was an honor, so it's worked out good for me. But wow, just be careful till the movie's over. It seems to have it out for you.
Yeah. By the way, what is this shit that I just saw today about the Abyss 4K release has been canceled in the UK because of the rat scene? Is that true?
Because of
It
the
only
what?
movie's 35 years old.
Yeah, but they're doing a transfer, a 4K transfer. Did that really happen, Tom?
Yeah.
The rat wasn't harmed. This is so fucking stupid.
Well, what I guess it boils down to is the rating because of that or whatever. And I guess that was edited out of their version or whatever. I have no idea. But Disney was willing to cut it out, but Lightstorm said nope. So that killed the UK release, I guess. But you can import it from the US.
Well, we're going to still get our copy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That scene was awesome.
Yeah, and because the reason why they actually did it was because they already knew that it had been tested on rats.
Yeah.
And that it was safe. And so they did it. They couldn't do it with the actor because they were still a year away from human testing when they wanted to do it. Hey, Rod, what's up? Who's all here?
Oh, I have a nice list on the private chat for your convenience.
We got Anima Confisa, Love of My Life, Slasher Fred, Penny is here, and Rod Thunderheart. It's fantastic.
And
You
Deepak.
didn't do that right.
Deep Bud Martin, West Kegel. Remember to do your Kegel exercises.
It's
Slasher Fred.
And look at this.
Thunderheart!
Rod's a great guy, man. Let's see. And Resolute Germ is here.
Hello, Germ.
Welcome, ladies and germs. Classic comedian joke. There we go. So, yes, it's really happening, folks. It's not your imagination. We are really going to do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles today. And it's going to be fun. We love this movie. Tom probably more than any of us, even though I absolutely do love this film. I was a grown adult when this came out. I was in the Army, and I still love the shit out of it. I was 26 years old.
You know what?
Depending on which day of the week you ask me, it's my favorite movie.
Is that really? Are you serious?
Yeah. I mean, some days it's Jaws, but just depending on my mood, you might ask me, and I might go, "Oh, no, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles." It's the greatest comic book adaptation ever, in my opinion.
I think so too. And you know, a lot of people don't know that Jim Henson really did a lot of work for this film, and it was the year he died. because he died from pneumonia while flying. It killed him, the altitude. That was 1990.
Didn't they call in a favor to get this done by Henson? He was a little hesitant. Someone had
Yeah,
an
Brian
association
was
with him for
actually
this.
more. Brian Henson was the one who lobbied for it more so, and he actually became the second unit director.
There's so many cool little things like this, like the voice actors that were involved with this. To what's his name? Was it Johnny Reyes or something like that? The martial artist kid,
Ernie.
Reyes. Is that it?
Yep.
Yeah. And you would see him years later as the tribal leader in the movie The Rundown with The Rock and Sean William Scott.
Oh, what's him? Nice.
Well, he was
I feel
actually
like-
Keno in the next movie.
Really?
Yeah, he played Keno.
Not like
and he
that
also
film,
was
too.
a little. He was also the little kid in Red Sonja as well.
Small universe.
I got to go back and watch that because I don't remember that. Yep, one of the last projects he worked on.
Or not Red is he in that? I can't remember that. The other one I was thinking of is he's in
I see a critter.
Well, yeah, that's that part of it.
Wise man say forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza.
How did Ninja Turtles come to New Line?
It's a really long and fascinating story, but I'll tell you a little bit. I knew who Raymond Chow was because 15 years previous, when we were just handling little tiny art films, and I was in Cannes actually with Werner Herzog watching some stupid movie, and it was Director's Fortnight, and we're sitting watching this movie, and I said, why don't we go out and see a movie that I just read about in the Film Francais, which is the daily newspaper for the Cannes Film Festival, that was supposed to be the biggest hit ever in Hong Kong. So we said, okay, let's go see that. So we jumped out. We went to see Bruce Lee's first big success, Fist of Fury. And that's a whole other story, which I won't get into right now. But anyhow, we made a deal for that film and for Big Boss, which was this other movie that he had made then. And Raymond Chow was the producer, and he reneged on our deal and sold it to somebody else because the truth is he wanted $50,000 for it as an advance, and I didn't have $50,000 in my bank account then, so we lost that. But there was always that thing about Raymond Chow, and Raymond Chow was also the producer of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and yeah, I'd heard about it, but they didn't even deign to offer it to us. It was being shown all over town to everybody, and everybody turned it down. And what happened, in the same way that I acknowledged the skills and the taste of the people who I was working with, my colleagues, Sarah Risher, who at that time was head of our little production and development division, as well as Mitch Goldman, who at that time was head of our domestic distribution, which was popping right along, both came into my office and said, you got to go after this film. I said, well, what is it? I never heard of these guys. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is the biggest thing, and both of them had kids who were like 7 or 8 years old, who both realized from their kids that this was a hugely hot product, and everybody had turned it down. So in fact, I think Mitch Goldman, when he came into my office, he said, listen, I will sign a oath with the blood of my finger that says that we are going to make money off this movie. I mean, it was just sort of an anecdotal way. So anyhow, we bought it, and that was how it came to be. And of course, the bitter irony of the whole thing is that Miramax later on, after we gave up the franchise, they picked it up. They came out with the film on exactly the same weekend that my film, The Last Mimsy, came out, that I thought was going to be a big hit, and they completely creamed us. So you have to look at life as ironic.
So then how did that success change New Line? Because at the time, it was the biggest independent film of all time. I talked to him for a little bit a few years later.
Yeah, well, it was great. I remember calling up our head of distribution.
I just got to say what he means by irony of that is because the other company that he was talking about that jumped in and stole the Bruce Lee movies from him was the Weinstein brothers. Miramax. And so this was kind of his FU to them, but then they got it back on him because they produced the 2007 film, which opened the same weekend as his movie.
Which crushed his movie, yeah.
But he goes on for a bit about Ninja Turtles here, and I suggest you guys checking out this interview we did with Robert Shea over on Midnight's Edge, because he's a very elusive gentleman. And for those who don't know the name, you definitely know the work. He is the man behind New Line Cinema, Nightmare on Elm Street, Blade, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mask, Lord of the Rings. He's the man. So after our show, check that interview out. We talk to him about a lot of things, including just how this company got started, stuff with John Waters, Nightmare on Elm Street, Critters, Ninja Turtles, Last Kiss Goodnight, comic book movies, Jim Carrey, all that stuff, Lord of the Rings, all that good stuff. So check it out. It's one of my proudest interviews there, by the way. But yeah, as you said, I am a fan of this film. And I even have a few copies here. I didn't bring any other goodies. I got so much crap that I didn't even bother. But here's, your basic run-of-the-mill Blu-rays.
Right.
And then I have, I believe this is a UK import. And then I got a German DVD because it has the audio commentary on it. And then I have the more recent Japanese release here. So there you go. It's not 4K, it's just regular Blu-ray, but yeah. So yeah, needless to say, I'm a little bit of a fan.
That's very cool, dude. The movie, one of the things I really liked about the film was the actor that played Casey Jones, because I'm a big fan of Elias Koteas' career. He has played some heavy characters over the years. That he got his start playing Casey Jones is so freaking awesome. There he is. That's him. Holy shit. Who put that out?
NECA.
That is really good. NECA puts out some really good stuff, man. I've got a lot of their toys myself.
Yeah, Elias Koteas plays a Romulan once or twice in Star Trek The Next Generation, too.
Oh, man, that is beautiful.
Look at that. That's perfect, dude. Yeah, I got to tell you, Jim Henson's turtles are so, all of them, all the costumes, everything in that freaking movie was better than anything they've done.
Well, we really have Labyrinth to thank a lot for this film, actually.
Not surprised, yeah, because
a lot of the technology that they had come up with on Labyrinth, specifically Hoggle. If you remember that character, the little person with the big head, and Brian Henson did the voice and the puppeteering on. And that was basically, you had this big, huge head with animatronics inside, and he had a little backpack kind of hidden by his shirt with all the other stuff to run it with the gears and radio control. So what that was, is that was the first time they were able to do something like that expressive, that wasn't tied up to a bunch of wires.
Right.
So like normally if you did something like Ninja Turtles, you could have them run around, but they can only have one look on their face. And then you'd have to stop, do a close up, and then you didn't see it, but like you'd have a bunch of wires running up this actor's leg up to the face and all this stuff. But this radio control stuff that they were able to do now, especially since they had the shells to hide all the mechanics in, really helped. But what this did do is add a lot of weight to the actors. So you're adding like a 50, 60 pound pack plus the weight of the suit, and the suit does not breathe. Okay, guys. So just so you guys think about this for a minute, it wasn't like, your body does not get any oxygen for X amount of hours. So like, there's no breathing involved in this. Like, so these costumes would literally soak up the actor's sweat and would disintegrate. So they would only get to use them for so many hours. So they had a whole warehouse that was just pumping out turtle parts.
Because they were still using a lot of that foam rubber, right?
Yes. Yeah. So they really were just pumping out turtle parts all day long, constantly, just arms, legs, excuse me, the whole shebang, masks and all, because they would just reskin the animatronics, and the actors, after a few hours of using it, they get dings in it, or fucking around doing some stunts, and then of course you rip the rubber and stuff like that, so you'd have to go get a new arm, stuff like that. So they were constantly making, and they made all the turtles interchangeable, but they did give each turtle their own face, kind of, in a way, but otherwise the design is the same. But then you had like two different actors for each character, right? You had the physical actor who did just the acting scenes, and then you had the stunt guys, and this is where Ernie Reyes Jr. came in. He actually did the stunts for Donatello in the first film, and then he actually played Kino in the second film. But like, so yes, he had all those actors. So you had, a total of 4 actors for each one of the characters, basically altogether, or 2 actors for each one of the 4 characters altogether is what I was trying to say, plus the voices. And the only one who did the voice that was in the costume was Raphael's character, and that was oh god, I just forgot his name. He's been in a ton of shit. A character actor, Josh Paez. And so he did both, but he actually broke his nose once during the making of it, and he was actually claustrophobic, so he hated being in the costume.
That would be a nightmare.
Wasn't supposed to, because the way that thing was is you kind of had to have like 2 or 3 people come over and kind of get you out of the head. And the scene where we'll get to it, I'll tell you where that happened, but let's get into the movie here proper here. But
Go ahead, Martin. Go ahead, get that thing cranked up.
The Turtles, I mean, themselves, I don't know how much you want to get into the history or all that kind of stuff, but yeah.
Do a deep dive, dude. Whatever you want to do, Tom.
Well, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but like obviously, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird came up with the Ninja Turtles, roughly 1984. They were drunk and possibly high or something else, just kicking ideas around. And one of them, I believe it was Peter, first drew a picture of, or was it Kevin? Either way, one of them drew a picture of a tortoise with nunchucks strapped to its head with a headband, and threw it at the other, and he goes, it's a Ninja Turtle. Well, then the other did their version, and they kept going back and forth till they got pretty close to what the versions we have now. And they came up with this, what was meant to be a one-shot comic book that was more or less a parody of some of the weirder stuff in the mutants, X-Men kind of world, and more so Daredevil. In fact, it directly ties into Daredevil. In fact, the vial of ooze that makes them mutants is supposed to be the same stuff that gave Daredevil his powers, is their kind of like in joke in the story. So you even have like Splinter instead of Stick and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and instead of the hand, it's the foot.
Exactly. And the Shredder, they came up with the Shredder exactly like you think they did. They were sitting there making pizza or something one day, shredding some cheese or what have you, and one of them just happened to slide their hand into one of those colander-shaped cheese graters and goes, wouldn't it be badass if we had a guy with just decked out in this kind of shit? And that's how the Shredder was born. Simple as that. So, yeah, just as simple as that. So, like I did, they borrowed a couple $1,000, I think it was, from their uncle, so they could print out the book. They printed it out. They sent it out to it. They took it out to a few comic shops. They didn't really think it would do all that much. But next thing you know, they started getting phone calls for more copies. And as they would, so they did another run because of the demand. And as they were going through that run, everybody's like, well, when are you going to do the next book? And they hadn't even thought about it, but they were sat down and they figured out, they kind of did the math, and they're like, well, we could do one of these books like every other month or whatever it is and basically live off of it. And that's how it started. And then eventually this guy from Surge Licensing come to them and said, I want to try and sell these things. I think that you guys have some potential here. So you had the RPG game that came first, and then Playmates, when they came along, that was the big deal, right? Because then it's the toys. So that kind of changed the Turtles going forward, because as most of us already know, what we didn't know at the time, if you were a fan of the Turtles as a kid, was that they came from a much more darker background, much more violent, much more adult-oriented, tongue-in-cheek. So what they did is they colored it up, tamed it down, and made it a bit more for kids, but they needed a cartoon to sell it, right? Because of that, at that period, that was how you did it. You had a cartoon that would sell the toys would sell. Usually that's the case. And what they also had on their side was they had the guy who was one of the lead designers over on He-Man, who had just gotten pissed over some of the stuff they were doing with She-Ra. So he left and he came over to Ninja Turtles. And they had one of the better incentive programs for their teams that were working on that, to where if you created a character you got a percentage of that character. So it was a really nice working environment for them, and this flourished. So, and there's a great video out there. I believe it's in the documentary Turtle Power, which I can't recommend enough if you have a chance to see it. I think it's even on Paramount Plus right now. Where you got like the Playmates people that are sitting there telling them like, you have like a 3-year window on this thing. So you might as well strike while the iron's hot. And here we are, 40 years later, still talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And they were one of the biggest franchises of all time, especially when you talk about toys, like right next to Masters of the Universe and stuff like that. They've actually flourished beyond Masters in a way. And here we are.
My big thing was playing the video game back in the 80s.
And so even the cartoon was so popular. You had the toys, which were super popular. The movie was just a foregone conclusion. But as you heard from my story that I just shared with you with Robert Shea, no studio wanted to touch this thing. And that was because the toys had already reached their 3-year point. And they also looked at it as Masters of the Universe failed miserably at the box office, like just 2 years before this.
Yeah.
So they did not want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. But thank God Robert Shea had the foresight to listen to his people, because as I said in the thing I just showed you, it was the biggest independent film of all time until Blair Witch Project came out in 1998 or whatever it was. That's like, and this was a big year for movies. And this did very, very, very well. It surprised a lot of people. I don't think anybody expected it to do as well as it did. And it just took the world by storm. Turtles had a resurgence all over in the middle of their height. It was really weird how you went from strength to strength with the Ninja Turtles. I mean, they even had a music album and a tour going on at this time. Pizza Hut tie-ins. I mean, it was just insane how much Turtle stuff there was at this point.
Oh, I remember, man. Even when because I was like in the middle of being in the Army at the time, we still saw it. It was a huge, huge move. My son was a big fan, Ben, and he collected a lot of that stuff. This is my favorite thing right here, is the way they did. I just forgot his name.
Splinter. Well, he's the only one that's a traditional puppet. I mean, yes, he has some animatronics mixed in, but he's an actual puppet. And you actually have Kevin Clash doing both the puppetry and the voice of him. And you know Kevin Clash a little bit more than you probably think. He is a very popular Muppet was a very popular Muppet.
Oh yeah, he did the real red puppet, Elmo. Yeah.
So believe it or not, Elmo was Splinter. Yeah.
A little
soliciting guys.
Young man, underage man. But one of the other things I really love about this, because I'm a huge fan of a couple of actors in this film, and one of them is Sam Rockwell. He plays like the lead thug in this, as I recall.
Yeah, one of the Foot Clan guys.
It was like his first big thing he got to do. After that, the next big thing he did was Lawn Dogs, which is one of my favorite films with him.
Now, was Corey Feldman a fan and that's why he was in this, or did they actually like go after him for it? Because the voice.
Well, I think the voices were more of an afterthought. In fact,
yeah,
if
he wasn't
watch the first trailer.
He did the voice, right?
Yeah, if you watch the first trailer, they don't even have the voices yet. They're just generic voices in the trailer. And there was they did in earnest give the puppeteers a chance to try and do the voices, like come in and redub.
Right.
But the only one that the puppeteers and whatnot, but the only person who really was able to kind of capture it was Josh Baez, who just came in, and from that moment on, that became Raphael's voice. I don't know if people realize that. I mean, because the only voice we had before that was on the show, and he was a bit more sarcastic, right? But Josh came in with that fucking accent, and the moment he did that accent, that Brooklyn / New York kind of accent with Raphael, and just that, come on, forget about it kind of voice. That just became Raphael, and they stuck with him. But the rest of the guys, they actually got in really well-known actors. In fact, Leonardo is voiced by the guy who plays Brian Toshi he's in Police Academy and Revenge of the Nerds.
Right.
He's actually I'm trying to remember his name, and because it's pretty much the same name in both, but like Yoshi or whatever, he's the Japanese guy. So he's actually using his real voice for once. He's not putting on a fake accent. So that's his real voice playing Leonardo. And then you've got, of course, Robbie Rist doing the voice of Michelangelo, and he's a famous voice actor now. But prior to this,
when I was young, he was
years
famous
ago
for playing in the Brady Bunch movie.
Yes, he was Cousin Oliver.
Cousin Oliver. You know what really surprised me is they didn't bring in what is his name? Barry Gordon. Barry Gordon. He was an actor, a kid actor when I was a kid, and he ended up doing the voice of one of the turtles for the cartoon from the 80s. And he played the same character for all the way through 96.
But Corey, at this time, Corey, he was, I mean, still pretty fairly popular enough, and that he was the bigger name in the film, basically, at that time, I guess you could say. Because he even gets the "and" credit at the end of the movie in the credits.
Crazy.
Yeah, we all knew who he was because of Stand By Me.
Sam Rockwell's the head thug in this movie.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I said that. Welcome to the show.
What's funny is also Shredder and Tatsu have voiceover work too. That's not their real voices either. In fact, you can hear the real voice of Tatsu. I can't remember what movie it is. It's either Red Scorpion or something like that. I can't remember which one it was he's in, but yeah, he has a much different voice than what we hear in this movie.
I also liked what's her name? Hogue.
Judith Hogue, yeah, she was great as April, yeah.
April O'Neil.
And there's Josh Paez right there in the back seat.
There he is.
But okay, so this scene here,
one of them too, right?
This is one I wanted to catch real quick because where he flipped him over and he fell into the trash can. That's where Josh broke his nose.
Oh shit!
So if you watch that scene, you'll notice at the end of the scene, once he gets the garbage can off of his face, he's like reaching for his face, because when they dropped him in the trash can, it crushed the mask because it was just a stunt mask or whatever, I think, and it broke his nose.
God damn, dude.
Yeah. So that's
having had my nose broken. I know how awful that feels.
So you can see him actually grabbing for his face at the edge of the scene when you watch it in like slow motion. It's kind of funny knowing that.
Hey, I want to point out some people that are here. I see more people are dropping in. Good friends of ours. We have let's see. What's Kegel? Oh, the Chuck Jose channel is here. Willie the Monkey King's music is here. Gorilla's Random Thoughts. The Comic Relief Crusader, our good buddy Mike, is here. Snail Messiah. Oh, Zax is here. Kyle. We owe him a video. Deleted Scenes, our good friend Stephen. Kingsport Cal is here. Good to see you, Cal. Ariel Ballette is here. Captain Fandom Nerd. Support staff. Alex Moore. Reed by Nature is here too. Pete Dan Cat. And Rumble Canada Spider-Man is here over on Rumble. I wish they would let us be able to read some of the shit they say over there. Yeah, Martin, get him his video.
Yes, I was. Wait, I didn't want to interrupt Tom and anything.
Oh, well, now's a good time.
Oh, yeah.
Take your time. We're not in a hurry or anything.
Okay, I'm going
Go
to
slow.
for some coffee then.
Slow down more. You're just really rushing.
Okay, Gerry.
I feel the rushing going.
I will.
Will you fucking do it?
Everlight, protect Grog and the rest of our friends, wherever they are.
That was for Devon Martin, who made a fabulous reach. And this is for Sam.
Hey, fuck you, Kyle.
This show is not G-rated, but it is run by a bunch of nerds. Oh, this kid too.
Kashi, that's I think the guy's name in Nerds, but yeah.
Michael Turney is that kid's name. He plays Danny Pennington in this, right?
Yeah.
He was in a lot of 80s stuff.
Yeah, this is a new character for the movie.
The Danny character?
Yeah.
Yeah. The scene where the Domino's pizza delivery man is trying to... The scene where the Domino's delivery pizza man was trying to... The scene where you put the fucking thing back up. I was reading it out loud.
Oh.
It's so
Thank
funny.
You. Is trying to find out his delivery address is so funny.
The pizza delivery guy is actually the actor who's in Michelangelo's costume. And he's also the guy who bumps into April in the beginning of part 2 with his wife.
Wasn't there cross promotion with Domino's?
No, it was Pizza Hut.
Actually, okay. Here's what's funny is if you go back and you listen to that interview I did with Robert Shea after this, he gets into that. That was one of the ways he helped make them, because all it cost him to make this is they just needed like $5 or $6 million to get the movie made. So he gave it to him, but he also got most of that money from playing Domino's and Pizza Hut off of each other. So what he did was
smart.
Domino's has got the placement in the movie, but Pizza Hut got the video deal. So when you bought the movie on video, you got a coupon for Pizza Hut, which when you went to Pizza Hut, you also got the promotion with the cassette tape and all that business. So yeah, it was all a cross-promoted synergy thing at that time. That he had it all figured out. So they probably didn't even spend a dime on this. But it made them so much money.
The one thing I would point out is no one in New York would ever order Domino's or Pizza Hut or let the pizza guy turn the box sideways. You would just scoff at that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. You got so many great pizza shops in New York. Same in Chicago.
I ordered some right before this movie in honor of this film. I'm enjoying some real New York pizza right now. So nice. I wouldn't give them the whole $13 either. Although it's I just point out it's $23 now for a pizza in New York.
Well, that's not too bad. It's pretty much 20 just about anywhere now.
Yeah. I'm going to hit some of the comments here. We got Anima Confusa, member for 17 months. Thank you, sweetheart, supporting your man. Let's see. I'll be listening through the back door. That was the one we got for D-Bud Martin. There we go. Tom and Andre. Let's see. Are you mirroring the stream? Yes, Teague is mirroring it. I think he's the only one mirroring it right now.
Yes.
And of course, Zach said, Gary, we love Zach. He's a good friend. Good old Kyle. I noticed how the opening where April is doing a report on all crime in New York and her being attacked by a vicious gang is similar to the opening in the episode of Turtle Tracks of the 80s cartoon. Any thoughts on that, Tom?
I didn't catch that. What was it?
That the attack on her is similar to the opening scene in the Turtles cartoon.
Well, yeah, that was one thing where the initial comics, they don't even meet April until like the second comic or so. And she's actually
I read the first issues and I don't recall her character at all.
Yeah, no, well, she came in, she worked with Baxter Stockman, and they find her in the sewer trapped by a bunch of mousers. And that's how they save her in the original comic.
Very cool.
But what they did is they combined, because the funny thing is when Steve Barron came on to this movie, for those who don't know, he's the director. He had been primarily a music video director, but he a very, very prolific music video director. In fact, he had directed like Billie Jean and Take on Me from Aha, which had won a lot of awards and shit like that. So this guy was in kind of demand at this point. And he come in, took one look at the script, and he's like, fuck this, and he threw it out. And he started going through the comic book, and he started ripping pages out of the comic book and throwing them at his writer. And he goes, this is in the movie, this is in the movie, this is in the movie, this is in the movie. And then
that's how every comic book movie should be done.
Yep. And that's how they basically did it, with that and combining just slight elements of the TV series at the time being, just a little bit of their personality, the pizza, the colors, and April's profession and her relationship initially to the Turtles.
Yeah, and I didn't even know who April was until later when I played the video game.
And actually, the whole thing with them going to her farmhouse, that's in the comics as well. But it's Leo,
there's
Raph that gets hurt. But where like Raph is meeting Casey Jones, that's its own comic book. It's almost like it's crazy how great they did this and how well they melded everything. Now this is shot on 16 millimeter. This is actually the shit that Brian Henson shot, believe it or not.
16 millimeter Pro, yeah, which is perfect to shoot with because it absolutely cleans up the 35 millimeter.
Well, they wanted it to look like vintage.
Yeah, grainy.
Home movies.
Like home movies, exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Next one we got here, Hail to All, just leaving work now. Deleted scenes watching the show. Glad you're here, buddy. Let's see. Willie the Monkey King's music. I know Honest Trailers called the suits creepy, but I think the CG version of the Turtles look weirder.
Yeah, I don't know where
I
they're
agree.
getting that shit
I'm a
from.
big fan of what they did with this movie. I really am.
They have the Henson charm, and that helps.
Yep.
Yeah.
New Line Cinema also did some of the Friday the 13th movies.
Yeah, they bought the rights to Jason in the 90s, yeah.
Now, I'm curious about some of these scenes because a lot of these shots look like the backlot.
Okay, well, they actually shot most of this in
North Carolina, I think.
North Carolina, thank you, yes.
Interesting.
And the fucked up
It
part
doesn't
was...
look like New York at all when they show like the city. It doesn't look like it at all.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been to New York, so I can't really speak to that. But yeah, there's a lot.
This is back when they were trying to turn North Carolina into the new Hollywood. Dino De Laurentiis built an entire studio down there.
Yeah, because they got a lot of tax breaks. But they found out early on because they built the sewer set, and it kept flooding.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Oh, the irony.
Yeah. So this was a problem, and
blew my mind. Sitting around the table, interacting with each other, I was mesmerized by the animatronic work here.
That's one of the great things about the scene, because the scene itself is not all that great with the dialogue anyway.
No, it's just how
what you're
looks
able to see. Yeah, you're right, because at this time we had never seen these kind of effects that, full-fledged body, moving around, doing all that kind of shit. Like, that's what I was talking about with the radio control. But that would also cause a problem because they found out that their frequency was similar to the airport nearby.
Oh shit.
So sometimes all of a sudden in the middle of a scene, you'd have one of the turtles, one of their eyes would go to the left and one would go buggy, and their mouth would just go.
They had turtle speakers. What can you say?
It would have
They
been
had problems from time to time with that. They're just all of a sudden the turtles would have like a fucking psychotic fit.
It would have been a lot worse if the turtle frequency crossed over and started controlling the airplane.
Right.
That would have been
luckily that wasn't a problem so much as the other thing, but it just kind of reminds me of that story of that Mark Hamill was telling about when he was working on Empire Strikes Back, and he's sitting there because he couldn't hear Frank Oz, right? Frank Oz was down below in the set. So he had a little microphone, Frank did, and then that would feed into to Mark's ear, and he had a wireless ear plug in his ear. And all of a sudden one day he's sitting here hearing, Yoda going, much to learn have you, and blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden he starts hearing Rolling Stones playing in his ear. Because they started picking up the UK radio station. He couldn't hear Frank anymore, but he could hear Mick Jagger singing. He's like, what the fuck?
That's crazy.
So yeah, sometimes you run into that shit.
The Chuck Jose channel. Yep, one of the last project he worked on, and he's talking about Shay, right?
No, Henson. And Henson, like I said, he did very little on this movie. People need to understand that. I mean, yes, his name's attached to it, but his son deserves most of the credit for this because Henson was not too sure about it. He didn't like the violence. He wasn't quite sure that this was something they wanted to be associated with, but Brian was like, trust me, this is going to show the industry what we can do. Because you guys got to also remember, Labyrinth didn't really do all that well yet. At that time, it didn't do well at that time, and it didn't quite have the cult audience it has now. So, like, they were still trying to show Hollywood what they could do with the Henson puppets. And this led directly to things like, the Dinosaurs show and other things like that. So this was a very big breakthrough in animatronics because they had never done wireless animatronics to this extent before. I mean, like I said, that's outside of Labyrinth. So like it was considering CGI was right on the cusp of coming around, they would have never been able to make this movie 5 years before this. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Turtles 2 starts with In Memory of Jim Henson. I think that's the last one he worked on.
No, he died in between. Actually, he sadly died just a few months after this movie came out. He got to see the success that this movie was, and that's about it. He died, I believe it was June of 1990, if I'm not mistaken. I remember it pretty vividly.
May because
May or June. I know it was just as I was just.
Oh wait,
yeah.
No, it was July, so it was June. I started.
It had to be summer.
Basic training in July, on July 4th. So it just happened the week before.
He died May 16th, 1990. You were right the first time. Because I was going to say it was just before my birthday then. I was going to say it was
I don't
around my
remember
birthday.
hearing about it at all until I was in basic.
Oh, I
training.
seen it. I remember the day it happened. That was a sad day because I was only.
It broke my heart too, dude.
Yeah.
God,
I was only 10 at that time.
Time magazine with Kermit crying.
Yeah. I remember Good Morning America is where I heard it. I happened to be getting up for school because I knew I was still in school. That's why I was sure it wasn't July. It had to be at least May or June, and I knew you probably, and it was May. So I remember because at that time I had to get up, get my brother off to school, make sure he had breakfast and all that shit. And if I didn't have cartoons playing in the background, I would have Good Morning America or something like that. Especially if there was like some movie coming out, which I'm sure at that point.
Because
1990.
Nerds watched a lot of the morning news shows because they had a lot of sneak peeks and reviews and shit.
Well, that's the first place I saw anything for Ninja Turtles. That's the irony of ironies, is because before that, it was really kind of weird that, we live in a day and age now on the internet where we're used to seeing leaked photos and shit all the damn time.
Yep.
Prior to this, I didn't even know there was a Ninja Turtle movie coming out until like January of that year. And I picked up a comic book, and it wasn't even a Ninja Turtle comic book. It was a different one. And I was thumbing through it, and on the back page was this original ad that's on my shirt, the original poster.
Right.
And it's like, this ain't no cartoon. Lean, mean, and on the screen, March 9th or 19th or whatever it was. March 30th. It's on my shirt here. Jesus Christ. March 30th, 1990. Jesus Christ. Anyway, and I saw that, and I freaked out. Because I was like, we're getting a Ninja Turtle movie. And I just I remember that specific moment because I literally screamed it out in the fucking grocery store. And I'm like, holy shit, we're getting a Ninja Turtle movie. And then the next thing I remember seeing was in April of that year. So not too long before the movie came out. The cereal box had little images from the movie. And it was just Tatsu and Donatello. So they were really small. So you could barely see them. And I thought Tatsu was Shredder at first. I'm like, well, that's dumb. I'm like, what did they do with his helmet and shit? But then I figured out once I saw the trailer, which happened to be attached to those Burger King videos. If you watch those Burger King videos that came out with the Ninja Turtle cartoons, after the cartoon, they actually had the trailer for the movie. So that was the first time I saw the trailer for the movie.
Interesting.
But then on Good Morning America, they had the pizza ordering scene. So I saw that for the first time on Good Morning America. And I think they were interviewing Jim Henson actually on that episode. And so they showed that whole scene. That was the first time I actually got to see them. And I was like, holy shit, they're fucking real. And I couldn't wait to see them because this was like a week or so before the movie came out.
Right.
And that was one of the first movies I ever got to see on opening day, because where I'd lived before, we never lived near a big city. But at that point, we were living near La Crosse, Wisconsin. So I was like bugging my parents constantly up until the movie came out. Like I knew that day after school, I was going to go see Ninja Turtles. And actually, I think it was Easter weekend, so we had off. Now that I think about it, because I remember we went to Burger King early that day. So my dad got drunk and my mom had to take me to the movie. So yeah. Which is a typical thing in my life. But anyway.
By the way, the previous scene, that we had a couple of captures. That was they showed the thugs, and you got to see, he almost looks like a kid, is Sam Rockwell in that scene. He's one of the guys training.
There's a deleted bit there too, where Shredder actually does a demonstration. But I haven't been able to find that actual scene. I've seen
is Sam Rockwell in it?
No, it's a couple other foot members. It's the ones that he's giving the bandanas to, where he says money cannot buy the honor which you have been given tonight.
Man, oh man. By the way, we got a comment here. Did you know that in some areas the original cartoons were called the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles?
That was because specifically in the UK, nunchucks were very taboo and ninjas were very taboo. So
yeah, they were outlawed in Virginia where I grew up.
So Michelangelo, actually, they had to cut around the nunchucks most of the time, to the point where the animators finally just gave him a grappling hook instead of having to deal with it. And in the movie, if you watch, I believe that's that German cut that I showed here. It's actually shorter because they cut out all Michelangelo's nunchucks.
Raph's actor is in Joker. He's the guy who fires him.
Oh, I'm gonna have
Can't
to
you
disagree
hear
with
voice?
that. Somebody who doesn't know how to use nunchucks would say that.
Okay, I admit I have absolutely no ability with the nunchucks. It seems like if anyone came after me, if I had my choice, like knife, gun, sword, nunchucks, like give me the guy with the nunchucks.
See, all those things except for the gun, I could probably take out of your hands with the nunchucks. The gun is the only thing that's kind of a, I mean, well,
yeah, if you get good with them, and I studied, as young, I studied martial arts my whole life, and I was watching a pattern a kid was doing that was trying to be a tough guy out in the street, and I took them away from him because I knew the pattern, and I just followed the movement and took it right out of his hands. There he is, Casey Jones, fucking badass. Elias, what a great actor. Ariel says, I had one of the biggest Mandela effect from this movie when I first watched this. I swear there was a scene where they are in the gang hideout and those kids got beat up by the turtles.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
No, he's saying he remembers something that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right, Mandela.
Although
we've got 5 other turtle movies now that something similar may have happened in.
Maybe. I mean, the second one, they do infiltrate the junkyard.
Look at this.
Look at what?
This coming. They're still banned.
Where's Reed at?
Well, the reason they're banned is why you just said there, because they're so easy to make. That's the thing. And they're quite dangerous. That's the problem. You could fucking kill somebody very easily with them.
Yeah.
Like even Bruce Lee was one of those who was like, they're fucking stupid. They're a baby toy. Till he learned how to use them. And then they became his favorite weapon.
Yep. Hello, Gary panel, mods, Penny in chat. First time catching the Minefield stream. Exciting stuff. Thank you, Pete. Welcome to the show. Hope you enjoy it and hope you come back.
I mean, if somebody has a big ass sword, I would probably like to have a big sword, but
yeah,
if I had nunchucks, I still would be okay, I think. But yeah.
The scene where the Domino's pizza delivery man is trying to find out his delivery address, we read that previously, so I'll remove that one. The actor who played Tatsu and the no-nonsense police sergeant were the only ones to ever appear in the sequel.
They got a perfect likeness for Chief Wiggum for the police chief.
Yeah, he does look like him.
Chief Stearns, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you trying to tell me how to do my job?
You are not chopped liver, Anima.
And this is 3 police uniforms, 2 police weapons, and 4 different kinds of police cars ago in my time.
I kind of
that's true. Outside of voices, yeah, they the only ones to return. Well, that's funny. The glasses are right where they need to be for Mike.
Yeah, on my thing, it'll pop on like Stallone's face. One time I was watching it, I'm like, "Holy shit, my face is
Speaking
Stallone."
of nunchucks, here's the chucker scene.
Yep.
I do think it's good that they made Raphael get beaten up instead of Leonardo, because it emphasizes Raphael's weakness as character, and that him being a loner gets his ass kicked because he's off on his own.
Right.
Yeah, it's the same circumstances in the comics. It's just roles reversed, and it works really specifically because he's the one who is already going, like you said, going off on his own already to begin with. Because in the book, it's the same thing. They get into a fight, and Leo just happens to go out to blow off some steam instead, and he gets ambushed in the snow. And it happens at a completely different time in the book. And then the whole thing, like I said, they just combine a lot of things that happened throughout the book, the first run, into this movie, and it just works brilliantly how they you're right, like it makes more sense to have Raphael be the bit of the more upfront turtle, and especially with his anger issues, and you play into that kind of thing, and it works so brilliantly, especially with the dynamic between him and Leo. It's something they didn't have in the cartoon, which is sorely missing.
The cartoon, Slasher Fred brings up the fact that the backstory in the cartoon was that Splinter, Hinomato, Yoshi were one and the same, and that Yoshi and Shredder were once students in the ninja training school in Japan.
Yeah, this is one of the most changed things in all of the versions of Ninja Turtles, because in the original comic, it's a very convoluted love triangle / deal. Like, it's a brother that kills another brother, and then the younger brother is Oroku Saki, and Hamato Yoshi flees to America and all this shit, and it is not they really cleaned it up in this version. And I have the only complaint I have with this movie. There's one complaint, and that is they have to expect me to believe that Splinter learned ninja as a rat in a cage while watching Yoshi.
Yeah.
And they actually have him as a little rat doing the little moves. I'm like, that is redonkulous. All you had to do was either do what they did in the cartoon, but in this case, they actually wanted to have
sort
him
of like
killed.
the bullshit with Ben Affleck learning martial arts in Daredevil.
Yeah. Well, what they should have done is either just did what they did in the cartoon, and or if they really wanted to kill Yoshi, you just have him say, as I became mutated, my memory came back to me more vividly, and I could actually remember things differently than when I was a normal everyday rat. And at that moment, it just comes flooding back to him all the things that happened already. Like, it's all you had to do is just have a simple line of dialogue explaining that not only did I remember the death of my master and who killed him, but I also, learned ninja. I mean, you can even still have the rat leaping at his face and shit like that. A rat's going to react that way, maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, the whole like learning in his cage shit and all that kind of stuff, like,
It was silly. It was. By the way, I like this comment from D-Bud Martin in regards to the story with Mark.
It is,
Hamill,
but even as a kid, I'm just like, oh, give me a break.
D-Bud's talking about here with the Yoda thing with the radio. And he goes, our front door.
I think it was Fool to Cry, actually. If I remember, Fool to Cry was the song.
I do love the soundtrack at this point when the whole thing's burning down. The do 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 do.
Oh yeah, John Duprez did an amazing score for this movie, and it's all electronic music mostly. I mean, there's a little bit of symphony mixed in, but it's a brilliant score. Brilliant score. Gave the Ninja Turtles a whole nother theme song when they already had one. He's in this?
Yeah, it says that he's connected to the film. I don't believe that. I think that they've screwed up here and over on the website and mixing in shit from later films.
I was gonna say he does the voice of in one of the newer movies, I believe.
Yeah, so yeah,
Bebop or Rocksteady. I can't remember which one, but yeah,
they messed up.
I think he's Rocksteady.
Anima says we had that happen at the opera. Some taxi frequencies triggered the magical music thing. Papagino is using. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that fucking word.
Zauberflöte?
Zauberflöte. Took way too long to figure out why it kept going off at the weird times. I know that we learned that our radios were on the same frequency as car alarms when I was a paramedic up in Seattle. And we could key the mic leaving the hospital and set off all the doctor's car alarms in the parking lot. And we would do it. We get notes, please stop doing that. And it made us do it more because we're jerks. Anima said, oh, we already read that. Let's see. Let's get to the next one. I just found out that Skeet Ulrich, who played the original Scream bad guy Billy Loomis, had an uncredited appearance in this movie. I didn't know that.
News to me.
I didn't know.
The poor man's Johnny Depp.
Yeah. Probably somebody in the background, I'd imagine, in the kids, yeah.
You barely see
you
Rockwell
can't always
well
get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you can find what you need. I like that.
But he wouldn't sing it that way. Always get what you want, you can't.
Just trying to imagine Mark Hamill looking at Yoda and hearing Fool to Cry.
I want to get through all these starred comments. So let's see. Just a shame that the sequels got hit by those parents against violence caused them to be. I swear to God, that's where woke learned from is these bitter old ladies from the 80s and the early 90s.
Well, that
killing
Tipper
everything.
Gore shit, yeah, that was all kind of proto soccer mom woke shit.
Ridiculous shit.
It's what
They
ruined
killed-
Ghostbusters as well.
They killed Saturday morning TV.
They
They
killed
ruined
comic books.
children's lives forever. Slasher Fred says in the original cartoon, there was an episode called Dirk Savage Mutant Hunter, where Toka and Razor, the two mutant bad guys from The Secret of the Ooze, made
It's
an
true.
appearance.
Yep.
Read by Nature says, I forget which Bruce Lee keeps getting censored here due to the Nunchaku ban.
Probably Enter the Dragon, or well, I'll say he actually used them in like 3 or 4 movies, so it could be any number of them.
Yeah, I had the shorter ones. Interestingly, they have a longer chain. They're
I'm not
heavy.
a big a fan of of the longer chained ones. I have actually quite a collection.
Oh, by the way,
Various
coming
sizes,
up
but yeah.
here, when the thing breaks, that wasn't supposed to happen.
Tom, you should never play with your big sword because you'll go blind. That's from Tim, FKHC. The original cartoon was also a science fiction series with the Technodrome, the character
Technodrome.
of Krang and the idiotic mutant minions Bebop and Rocksteady.
Yeah, I mean, that was one thing I appreciate about the movies is they kind of avoided going to the crazier space oriented stuff. Because that, as a fan of the comics, that's something I kind of was not a big fan of. Is some of the more sci-fi bent when they start going into the wackier places. I liked it a little more grounded. Like, I don't like the idea of Shredder being this mutated creature made up of worms and shit like that.
Yeah.
And the Utroms are like, I actually like Krang. I actually prefer just having Krang be this creature from Dimension X,
Right.
you know, as opposed to this whole outer space business that they bring in.
Oh,
I don't mind
shit, I love this
Fugitoid
shot
and
right
stuff,
here.
but-
That's
Oh yeah,
that's
this is great.
directly
Farmhouse.
out of the comics.
Even though Secret of the Ooze is my personal favorite, this is from Phil TMNT. I will gladly agree that the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film is the best, and it is. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I'll
It's
stick
so
up for Secret of the Ooze, but I still see what a lot of people saw then, and definitely now in comparison, like this is the Dark Knight compared to Secret of the Ooze, which is like Batman and Robin, right? Like that's the level. But I mean, this movie, I mean, it really stands up as far as I can tell. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who've never seen it before, and I'm like, check it out. Let me know what you think. Because just out of curiosity, I've asked, and a few people have said, "Oh yeah, it's a pretty good movie," and gets you into it. It's a very fast-paced movie. You watch, you don't realize how quickly that 90 minutes just clips on by. Because this is probably the slowest bit of the movie, but there's so much fun shit in this scene you don't notice it, right?
Yeah, and I love the farmhouse scene. It's great stuff.
And it
By
probably
the way,
has some of the
Tim
most
is
deleted
here.
bits out of it too.
We owe Tim a little video, so here's Tim's video.
By what name are you known?
There are some who call me Tim.
And it's good character building because this is an actual like arc. There's an ebb and a flow to the movie.
Well, this is written back in a period of time when they paid attention to that shit.
Well, like I said, they cut this thing down to the bare minimum. Like the scene that probably has the most deleted out of it is probably this bit here. Because after Raph wakes up, you see them training a little bit, but there's a whole sequence that's cut out. In fact, the two scenes that they play off as Raphael are not Raphael, they're Michelangelo. Michelangelo's whole subplot was cut out of this movie. And it has to do with him. It's set up in the scene with Donatello. So that's Michelangelo right there, even though we hear Raphael's voice. You can see the nunchucks on his side. What it's about is his fear of losing Splinter. Because notice he avoids the question when Donatello asks him that. So this whole time while Raph's out and they're dealing with the loss of Splinter, he's been just like training like a motherfucker. And he's kind of growing up a little bit. And it's a whole bit that's kind of lost in the movie. It's kind of sad because he's the only turtle who doesn't really get an arc in the movie. But he does have one. It just hit the cutting room floor. but it all had to do with the fear of the loss of Splinter and
I
growing
love
up.
his freak out when
Because
they
he's the
find
guy
him.
who figures this out here. Because what they're doing is they're fighting without being able to see. See, they have their bandanas pulled to over their eyes. So this is all lost in the cutting. This just so we see it now. They're just, training, getting themselves back in order. But there's a whole bunch of stuff here that was cut out, basically, and repurposed in the way it is now. So I'd love to see the Michelangelo cut.
Is there a Michelangelo cut?
If the footage still exists, I'm sure we could do it, because he even has we've even seen the cartoon, the drawing that April did of her, because notice he doesn't get a drawing either. And I finally saw it for the first time like last year.
Interesting.
It was him training or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, we have hit the halfway point of the show. Go ahead, pause it, Martin, and you'll hear Tom's voice here again through magic of the trailer. So go for it, Martin.
Meet the Seattle Vigilante. Like so many comic heroes, this warrior hides his identity. But his identity isn't the only secret he has to keep. After grievous wounds received during combat, Tier 1 operator John Russell begins to recover and comes to terms with his new reality of being an amputee. And as he learns how to use his new prosthetic limb, he finds himself caught up in the bureaucratic red tape that too many wounded veterans experience, the exhausting medboard process. Out of sheer frustration, John takes it out on the criminal scum of the city. But when reality kicks in, John realizes he started something that's having an impact on the greater world around him, and thus has to reevaluate his motives. And moreover, just how far is John willing to go to finish this war he's declared against the criminals in Seattle? And will he even survive? From the creator of IDW's award-winning graphic novel Code Word Geronimo comes a new story about a different kind of warrior, Vindicated Inc., the first of its kind disabled veteran action hero comic. The Vindicated Inc. graphic novel crowdfunding campaign on fundmycomic.com is provided in the description of this video. We hope you become a contributor. Please share this link. Thank you.
Yeah, I caught what you were talking about there. It is true that they will cut things if they feel that it's already echoing something that's been said in a film or gone over by another character.
Which is good, because we don't have that discipline anymore.
Well, yeah, there's a tendency of beating a dead horse today.
Mm-hmm. I love this scene. What Russian novel with over 500 characters is set in the Napoleonic Wars? War and Peace. Sorry. I could quote this whole movie. He's alive.
I just, every time I look at these images, I'm taken back to watching this the first time on the screen, and just how blown away I was on the lighting on their faces, the movement of the faces.
Well, and you see some of the remnants of the Michelangelo bit here too, because Donnie is joking about roasting marshmallows, and even Michelangelo's like, now's not the fucking time, dude. This is a great scene.
You can see the slits though under the masks. The bandanas, where
that's how they could see.
Yeah, we're able to see. Yep. They did the same thing with Ultraman all the way back in the 60s. Trying to hide the slits where he could look out and see what he was doing. Because these guys weren't just performing, they were also doing the martial arts shit.
Proud of you, my son.
What also makes me sad is this is more mature dialogue than we get in modern Marvel. And this is for children back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, because this is a family movie. And they intended parents to take their kids to it.
Yeah, I'm surprised how many adults liked this movie, because my mom went into this with me knowing very little about the Turtles. She didn't really watch the cartoons with me or nothing. She ended up enjoying it quite a bit, I remember she said at the time. So, and she enjoyed it enough that she actually wanted to see the second one with me. So
there you go. And I had a kid, you know, and he grew up watching this stuff. I watched right along with him. I read the comics. I like this shit.
And these two have great chemistry.
Elias is such a
Sad they
good
didn't get to
actor,
make
man.
the second one. Yeah, I know. It's sad they didn't get to do a second one together.
Great too, and they have it like the sunset and it's the end of that part.
Time to go back.
Oh.
This is one of the greatest jokes in this movie. And I didn't get it as a kid, of course, but I get it now as an adult. With the whole, you're claustrophobic. What? I never even looked at another guy before. Like, you couldn't get away with that now in a kid's comedy.
I liked it back when they would put grown-up humor in kids' movies.
Yes.
For the adults that were watching.
Yeah.
Well, that's what kind of. Oh, go ahead, Stanatsky. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, because back then they knew that kids wouldn't figure this shit out. The adults would. So they, implement.
Right.
That's a lost art. Now it's like parents are like, how dare you put this dirty joke that only I understand?
Yeah, these jokes were written cleverly, the adult jokes.
Yeah. I don't think it's loaded, kid.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. He wasn't in the second film, but he did come back for the third film.
Oh, I can tell you why he wasn't in the second film. They had to kid up that second film. That's why you got a kid instead of Casey Jones. You got Ernie Reyes Jr., right?
Yeah, they shouldn't have done that. They should have absolutely had Elias.
Well, and look, and I'm not making excuses, but I understand, right? It's the first movie was a surprise success. They happened to make it, under the radar. They had to take the movie away from. That's another thing that's kind of weird is the director was fired from this movie during post-production. And it's kind of a funny story how that happened. He thought he could squeeze a few more special effects shots out of this movie. So without consulting Robert Shea or anybody else, he went and took this movie around to a few other houses, including Disney. And Katzenberg got very interested in this after he saw it and loved it. Spielberg saw it too and loved it. So Robert heard about this, that they were willing to write a check, an empty blank check right now for whatever Steve needed. Robert heard this and goes, what the fuck did you do? And fired him, basically. And not only that, they weren't happy with what he was doing with the final cut. His version was a much darker film. And that's probably where some of the Michelangelo stuff and also that stuff kind of hit the floor. But now as an adult, I'd want to see that cut.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, like, again, the reaction to this film, the kids loved it. It did very well. The teens loved it. That's the other thing, is it brought the teens to this franchise that weren't interested in this before. But there was a lot of soccer moms who freaked the motherfuck out about every little bit of violence, the nunchucks, the kids stealing, the whole kit and caboodle. And also you've got 2 or 3 main adult characters, and the only kid character is Danny. Right? So I can see where that's coming from, because everything was kidded up. They had to squeeze a little bit more into the, fun time kind of Saturday morning kind of flavor. And that's where Ernie Reyes Jr. was brought in instead. And he was supposed to be the kid character, basically.
Right.
They even have a character that came in later on the cartoon that was much like Kino, and he was one of the most hated characters on that show.
Which is funny, because the entire point of this movie is you should stick with your family and don't join a gang, because they don't actually care about you. They'll claim to be your family, but they're just using you. That's like the entire through thread. It's actually an important message for a lot of kids, because you're more likely to, fall into that, because especially if your parents are kind of shit, you're enticed to join a gang because you get to feel like you belong.
Yeah, and I mean, like Read by Nature says in the chat, success brings corporate interference, and that's exactly what happened. How else do you think Vanilla Ice wound up in the second film, for F's sake? I mean,
yeah,
like that whole thing was just a pure corporate mixing of too many people in the kitchen, a director who was just willing to bend over backwards and let the studio do whatever. and then take credit for success.
Right.
So, I mean, because Steve Bannon obviously did not come back for the sequel. And you can tell the sequel feels like almost like a different franchise in some spots. It's just like,
well, it really felt like
completely different tone.
The Peter Venkman fan site is here, and a new person, Cycleman90, is here. Welcome to the show, Cycleman90, and welcome to the show today, Venkman's girl. Good to see you. No. We're referring to the other film.
Now we get some more 16 millimeter shots here.
Was one of the other ideas they dropped for this movie a punk rock soundtrack, like something to tie in with the kid's Sid Vicious shirt, or was it always going to have a soundtrack?
Well, the original audience for the comic books were the punk generation, and they probably did consider doing that. Tom, your thoughts?
Sorry, what did you say?
Teague was asking about that they had considered putting a punk soundtrack to this.
Oh, punk soundtrack to this. Bannon, yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I've had a cough since yesterday. I apologize, guys. Yeah, this thing with Bannon, he got the Sid Vicious t-shirt in there. Like he got permission to get that in. And he initially kind of was going to try and do a little bit more punk rocky kind of stuff. But of course, SBK Records got involved. And at that moment, they're like, well, you got MC Hammer, right? This is right after Can't Touch This and shit like that. You got MC Hammer. You got, Ya Kid K, which was about to become Technotronic and shit like that. You got
Wilson Phillips.
Some other people on the soundtrack that were pretty hot at the time, but like up and coming shit. And so it was one of those soundtracks that they put it together probably near the end of the movie. And it was not with, I doubt it was with Bannon's anything to do with him. Because he actually had connections with some bigger musicians, obviously, because of his connections with Christ, he directed Billie Jean. I mean, come on.
Well, but the one thing I didn't know if you heard when I said it was the original comic books. A lot of the guys that I hung out with that we read the comics, we're punk guys. We listen to punk music. And so there was that punk element in the early days with the black and white comic books.
That's where I heard about it from.
Yep.
Well, and Baron, being of the MTV pantheon, surely knew that. I think he even says in the not the documentary, but the commentary or whatever, some about all that stuff. Like, I figured these kids were into skateboarding, these punk kids, they would probably be listening to punk rock. That's why Danny, I figured I'd have him in like a Sex Pistols or a Sid Vicious t-shirt, something with that lines.
Right. Yeah, I remember MC Hammer had.
There was actually a whole nother soundtrack that was thrown out. The original score was tossed.
Really?
Yeah, you can actually hear it in the trailer. That's the original score. And it's popped up somewhere else. I can't remember who did it, but it was just way off. It does not fit the movie. It's like this heroic superhero sounding shit. And it is like, what the fuck? Like, we might be able to get away with showing the trailer. You can hear the music in it. It is wackadoo. It's like you'd be glad they went with the other direction. Which I said is what I was saying earlier is kind of weird because at this time, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that was a lot of people were kind of disappointed at the time that they didn't have, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that theme, right?
It was
They didn't even have that anywhere in the thing. And they got their own new theme and everything for this movie because we didn't know at the time, but this was a deal that was actually made separate and around the same time as the series. It just didn't come to fruition until a couple of years down the road. So this had nothing to do with the series. And that's another reason why you don't have Krang and you don't have Bebop and Rocksteady and some other things like that. So it just, for them to actually come up with that, what John Duprez did with that soundtrack and to have that theme now, I mean, I almost associate the more so with Ninja Turtles now than I do the because it was kind of like Axel F. It just kind of has one of those things that's catchy and it was the right time, right kind of sound, and it just captured the Ninja Turtles perfectly. And I think Shinatsky or somebody else was talking about the score earlier as well. And
well, I just found the trailer. Is that the right one that I put in the private chat?
let me see here.
Take a look at that.
Because there is only one theatrical trailer for the first film.
Well, that's it says
Yep, this is
the
it.
original. That's it. Okay, we'll play it at the end of the show because if
once you hit about 30 some seconds into the trailer, you can hear the original music for the movie. It's kind of
yeah, we're near the end of the slideshow, so right at the end of it, we'll play it.
There's also an alternate ending, which I also put in the private chat.
Yeah,
if you want to watch.
Yeah,
I've shared him again before. There. I could have sworn I just saw him again.
Which one?
Sam Rockwell.
Oh yeah, he's in this movie quite a bit. He's the only
moment. I think he's the one who actually verbally surrenders.
Yep. Yeah. He actually is the only foot guy with any dialogue besides the two guys that are joining in the beginning. So if you all the scenes he's talking, he's got all the dialogue. He's introducing the guys to the lair. And then in the scene before, he was the one talking to Casey. He's like, "Let's get him." And he's like, "We got a loyalty to the Shredder," and all that kind of stuff. And then when the cops come in, he's like, "Go check out the warehouseman over on Eastman Laird Islands to find all your answers there." So he has all the dialogue as far as the Foot Clan guys go.
We only really get a good look at his face like twice, though. While he's talking, he's like moving around, or it's a medium
quite a
shot.
bit, yeah.
Like,
but at the end, you can really see him. Yeah.
He's
young. He's young. You got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, he looks like a teenager. By the way, our good friend Tom's and my good buddy Nick is here. Don't put the Shredder in your butt.
Should I send Nick the link?
Oh. Yeah, man. Join us, Nick.
One of my turtle boys.
Nick, of course, is referring to my new catchphrase on Toxic Tuesday, which is, I want that in my butt.
Despite this being an obvious picture, it's still better done than The Room.
Hey, John, welcome to the channel. Hope you're enjoying the show. John says, "My goodness, thought I was on the wrong channel." No, you're in the right channel, dude. Stick around.
Good to see you, buddy.
Now you face the Shredder.
The Shredder. Maybe all that hardware's for making coleslaw. I got him.
Now I want coleslaw. God damn it, Tom.
Ew, coleslaw's gross.
It's delicious.
Match you for it?
Huge. That's right, Nick. Huge. He's on the road, so he can't join us, but he loves listening to talking about turtles.
All right. Now, can somebody tell me exactly at what point we lost control here? Maybe somebody ought to tell him we're the good guys.
Yeah, I'm going to watch the movie again tonight.
Yeah, it's a great film.
Yeah, is there a way of finding out if we can find that footage and maybe do a special edit of it?
Of which footage?
The footage of Michelangelo.
No, I have not seen it.
On the road.
The only deleted scene that's been released is the one that Shinatsky shared in the background here, and that's on the German DVD I showed earlier. It's got the alternate ending on it, or the additional ending, or whatever you want to call it.
I don't want to know what fetish butt stuff you're into.
Ew.
Coleslaw on pizza? No, I wouldn't go for that, but I do like coleslaw. I'm a big fan of coleslaw with barbecue and with chicken.
Ah, the rat. It has a name. It had a name.
You lie.
Do I?
I've not seen this movie that much, only a couple times.
The,
Yeah.
the only problem
Like
I
a-
have with this movie is the bit at the end when Splinter and Shredder have to fight because the puppet is like stationary for a reason, and then they just like have the extreme close-ups because they can't really have him doing anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, unlike some people, dude, I will have Hawaiian pizza, but only Hawaiian pizza. I won't have pineapple on regular pizza. That's just weird. But you have to have the sweet marinara with ham, bacon, and pineapple. Is fine with me.
That's it. I'm quitting.
I like pizza.
You're
flavored
not quitting.
pizza.
You love doing this.
Yeah, but morally, I cannot work with you. Knowing that.
Morally?
Yeah.
You live south of the border. What the fuck do you know about morality?
My sicarios will deal.
Isn't that where MS-13 is?
I'm Venezuelan, man.
Whoops.
Elias would go on too to be on, what is that show, Oz? Wasn't he on Oz? See, this is what makes it look like a movie set. It doesn't look like an actual downtown. This looks like one of the backlot sets at Fox, Warner, what have you.
Probably was, or a set built in. I mean, it might just be the street. I've never been to North Carolina, so I can't speak to either. So
The way I can tell if it's the movie set is the curbs.
it could be. I mean, when they're using Splinter, a lot of times it was easier just to use sets.
I would think so,
because he's underneath shit all the damn time. In fact, like on this scene,
it's puppetry.
Yeah, it's all. That's the one they couldn't get to where they could actually move him around. So I wouldn't be surprised. I know Kevin Eastman's actually got his cameo in this bit here, but you could barely see him. He's the garbage man that goes running away earlier in the fight. But anyway, sorry.
No, I was saying that they changed Splinter between films, that he looks different by the second film.
They softened all of the Turtles and Splinter between films. They look a little softer.
Now
Like they softened their features.
Rounded them, like their lips are rounder.
And they gave Splinter lighter and more hair. Like he's not as ragged looking in the second film.
And the longer, he has the longer whiskers. Because you pointed that out to me because I used the wrong.
Yeah, he has a little bit slightly shorter snout and longer whiskers, so they make him look a little bit more cuter. In the first film, he looks like a rat. And yeah, I love that the bit here that they got all the news ladies all have names that are a months. You got May Williams and
I didn't catch that. June.
You didn't catch that. Yeah, all the ladies in town that are the big reporters all have names that are months.
Which
so it's April, May, and June.
Play on her name being April.
Yeah,
right. I love that.
I think it was June Mabels or whatever was the other one, but yeah, it's May Williams and June Mabels or something like that.
And of course, Nick says that Tom hasn't seen this movie enough.
No, I haven't.
No, but the whole ending with April is one of my favorite little movie tropes. If you get fired in a movie in the beginning, the end, your boss is going to beg you and you get your job back.
Strong female character. Look at that. Like she didn't have to diminutize. I mean, even though her and Casey don't get along, that's more of a will they, won't they kind of moonlight, like even like Donatello jokes, kind of like moonlighting, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
which is one of the few jokes that actually dates the movie, which is funny because you watch it now. There's not that many. That's why I think it stands up. There's not so many.
In fact, it got a nickname.
Referential
Cheers.
Jokes. Yeah,
because of Cheers, it got the nickname Sam and Dianing.
Well, and then that became the Ross and whatchamacallit, Ross and Rachel. Is that who it was? Yeah. Same kind of thing. But like that's one of the few jokes in the movie, the moonlighting joke. It's one of the only ones that dates the movie. That and the Jose Canseco bat.
But when you look at the fact that they live in the base, in the sub Earth watching TV. So it would make sense that they would be watching old TV shows.
Oh yeah, I know. But what I was saying, what I mean is like you watch these like movies that have comedy in them,
right?
And the ones that never are the ones that kind of fall off are the ones that have a lot of referential humor to things at the time. that unless they stay popular, like you can do an Elvis joke in a movie and it'd probably be okay, right?
Right.
You do a joke about Herman's Hermits, who the fuck's gonna get it?
Yeah, who's gonna get that one?
Now, like at the time when you did
Gary
it,
Lewis
probably,
and the Pacemakers,
or Gary Lewis and the Pacemakers, or something like that. Exactly. Or see, exactly. A better, like you could do a joke about the Beatles, people would know who you're talking about.
Right.
But like moonlighting is one of those things that just happened to transcend a little bit. That I think moonlighting, I mean, to where I think it did kind of stay around a little bit, even though I don't know if most kids would know what it is exactly. I think they get the reference. So you have that part of it too. But otherwise, there's no real jokes in the movie that really dated all that bad. So that helps. It helps a lot. Because you have that sometimes with movies, especially from the 80s, where they make a lot of references to Reagan or this or that or the other. But Reagan, of course, works because it's a president. But that's another reason why Back to the Future works, because they went out of their way to make sure that the referential jokes they made were things that were still going to be relevant. You know, I mean, the only one that, you know, that kind of falls off is like if you don't know who Jane Lyman is, or Jane Lyman or whatever, you know, it's the first lady, that line kind of whatever, if you don't know who that is. But like, anyway, being said, I think the movie is great. I'm glad you guys had me here and let me talk nonstop for an hour and a half.
No, it's great. By the way, I just saw it. Nephew's cough. Herman's Head. Tim brings up Herman's Head, which was, there are two Fox shows that were really early on with Fox when they were young. Mr. President with George C. Scott, just nobody remembers it. And then Herman's Head, which was huge for me. I love that show. Had the kid from Fright Night as the main character, Herman.
Yep.
But you had like Nancy Cartwright, who is one of the voices, or not Nancy. Yeah, Nancy Cartwright and the girl who plays Lisa on The Simpsons were voices in his head.
Yeardley Smith, yeah.
So it's like, it was an interesting show. I think it only got one season. And
yeah, I remember bringing it up a lot when Inside Out came out.
Yeah,
I remember. Yeah.
Right. Because that's what they did. That was basically Herman's Head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know we are also streaming on Rumble? Yes, we do know that. It was probably one of the few appropriate movies they could watch. Are we talking about like the family, young people? Because even though it was written for 13 and older, the fact is they wanted kids coming to this movie because merchandise.
Yeah.
And so definitely it was made a family-friendly film so the parents could take the kids.
Well, specifically the second film, if you're talking about Ninja Turtles.
Definitely more kid-friendly. A lot more toys for that movie, too.
Yes. Well, they didn't have any toy tie-ins for the first film. None. And that's because, like I said, that deal was made different. The deal for the first movie was made separate from everything else. But by the time the second movie, which they went right into production of the second movie, came out exactly a year after the first movie. In fact, it came out a week
they still had turtle toys.
Yes, but not based on the movie. Now, when you got to the Secret of the Ooze, though, you actually had Playmates do a line of movie turtles, movie Shredder, Super Shredder, Token Razor, I think a movie Splinter as well, where he had flocked hair and all that kind of business. So they actually went out of their way to do a toy line for the second film. But again, the whole gimmick was it was more geared towards kids. So at that time, as a kid, I was fine with it. I was only 11, so I didn't really notice as much. I mean, yeah, I noticed they're not using their weapons. I noticed it's a little lighter than the other movie. It's a little goofier, but I didn't mind that so much. I'm just like, okay, they just went a little more comedy route this time out. Like it is more like the second film still is a pretty decent comedy. In fact, speaking of lines that jokes that kind of age it, one of the best jokes in the whole movie kind of ages the second film, aside from all the Vanilla Ice stuff and everything else that's in it. So that's the problem with the second film too, is it's badly aged.
Yeah,
it's stuck in 1991.
Music artists in there.
Well, not just that, having Vanilla Ice in it, some of the jokes, you've got too much stuff that kind of really calls to it being in that early 90s period. But the big joke that I always laugh at, that I always didn't get as a kid but get as an adult now, is when they're in the net and Donatello's like, these things are actually pretty well constructed. And Michelangelo's like, yeah, remind me to drop a line to Ralph Nader.
Like
what kid
Ralph
is
Nader and his Nader Raiders.
Exactly. What kid is gonna get that shit? But now as an adult, that is one of the better fucking jokes in the movie.
Yeah. He single-handedly destroyed the Corvair car. My God, yeah. But
get your foot out of my face.
Martin, do you have the video queued up? The trailer?
Oh, yeah. Give me a second, please.
Do you want the whole thing?
Yeah, I
about
thought
30 seconds
like,
in,
I'm okay with
it's
them
old
claiming
enough.
it.
You should be okay. They might not claim you.
And but if they do, I'll just delete it,
trim it out
from the video.
It's been nice.
You know what you
having him
should
on
do is
Podcast.
just you should show the deleted scene first and then do the other one because I know the deleted scene will
okay,
get,
show the
because
deleted
I
scene
have that
first,
on
Mark.
my channel actually.
Wait a minute, man.
Yeah, there's that, and then
I'll
you
do it.
go
I'll get the
further
deleted
in the
scene up for you.
video.
All right,
It
Tom.
has the fight with Shredder and a couple of the kids.
How long is the deleted scene?
They're only like a minute. They're less than a minute each.
Okay, I got it.
Oh, you got it? All right.
And I already put it to where it jumps to the first one.
I always felt bad for Robbie Rist because of the Brady Bunch thing, because he was on the show and then he was off of it very quickly.
Well, it was more so that stigma. I mean, he became a meme, right? Like,
yeah,
you would say, "Oh, they brought in a cousin Oliver." Like that was like the thing.
They
you
did
would
the
say.
same thing with Married with Children.
Here we go. Oh, this one is 7 minutes.
Yeah, this is everything together. I think this has, just play it and I can tell you what's what, if anything. Because this might have the German alternate scenes in it too.
Go to 3:15 for the first one.
Okay.
3 minutes and 15 seconds.
Yeah, this is not the same one I had. This shows a lot of the stuff we were talking about though. Yeah, there's the
right there.
Deleted ending. I had that sticker book, man. I want it. You don't anymore though.
Danny and April.
He's got a different Sid Vicious shirt on this time.
Does it have any audio?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's making noise.
It just doesn't have any production audio.
These are very interesting, Miss O'Neill. Very interesting. As the basis for a comic book, I think the idea is just too far-fetched.
Oh.
Far-fetched? Shish!
That's the original voice, yeah.
And then 6:12 for the last one.
Oh, that's the Shredder scene I was talking about there, yeah. Oh, they found the video of it? Okay, yeah, I've seen this. Never mind. That's all that exists of it, though, for now. Until they release it officially. I don't even know who got that leaked out. Or where they got it.
And here's a theatrical trailer.
Our family grows. The city itself will be our playground to use as we please, rewarding ourselves and punishing our enemies.
We've been looking for you, Miss O'Neill.
There is a new winner.
There's another deleted scene right there.
Together, we will punish these creatures.
What the heck was that? Looked like sort of a big turtle in a trench coat.
Awesome!
Yeah, here's the music.
Ninja Turtle!
So yeah, this is the same trailer that was at the end of all the VHS tapes you could buy at Burger King at the same time the movie came out too. That was the first real big glimpse of the movie I got to see besides that scene from Good Morning America.
And what they did there is they just added drums to Strauss.
Yeah, it's this one composer guy. I can't remember who his name is, but he actually released it later on in an album. You can actually find that track somewhere. And yeah, it's Strauss. And that's the guy he originally had do the score. And they totally threw all that out and had John Duprez come in and redo the score.
Good call. We got a good score.
Very good call. I don't like that music.
Yeah, it does not fit.
Not horrible, but horribly inappropriate.
It's in fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's part of the Blue Danube.
Yeah, I wish I could remember the artist who did that, but you can find it on YouTube, like that whole track. I can't remember who it was. I apologize.
Oh, no worries, man. Man, that's a fun show today.
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to this for a while, and like we kept having to push it off, but we finally got to do this, and it's the final show of the year for us. For Tom and Gerry, Tom and Gerry, whatever you want to say. I did put the A in my name so people would stop calling me Gerry. Gerry. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it's weird doing a drum beat mix of a waltz. It's just weird. And I'm glad they fired that guy. And of course, yes, we hope you do support. We're going to ramp up after the 2nd for the last month of our campaign for the graphic novel. I was supposed to be on Culture's Casino yesterday, but some stuff happened. But he was with you yesterday at one point, so I guess he got it taken care of. He didn't do a stream in the morning or early part of the day. So... what do you do on Fridays now, Tom?
Morning show. And then sometimes I hop into Loki and then I have karaoke or whatever. Otherwise I do Mead Radio at some point generally.
Because I know like Friday Night Frolics with Doomcock is like 3 to 4 hours of him singing karaoke, and it blows my mind that he does that.
Yep, maybe 5. It was like 5 last time.
I saw one night where he went 5 hours. It was crazy. That was the one where he mentioned something about me when I got hospitalized, and he wished me a quick recovery. It was really nice of him.
He's great with that. He seems to know who everyone is and have a little bit of recall on there.
Well, we're a community. We are a community. We're all interconnected in some way.
That he's brought that up to 350,000 community members, and he's still able to have that amount of recall per person. It's just, he's got an incredible gift of memory.
Yeah. While you, on the other hand, may be a part of the community, but you are sort of a black sheep in this family.
Because I'll sometimes talk about New Trek. People think I like it. I'm just the only one willing to call it out. Everyone else is just
we
away.
call it out, but I try not to talk about it too much because, and Tom knows what I'm talking about, because our shows tend to get a reputation for being overly negative, and I don't want that. I want to be able to. That's why this whole Saturday thing's about. It's talking about shit we love.
I try
movies
to mix
we
it
love.
up between movies I enjoy and like someone has to be. There's a lot of people who have curiosity about what's going on in New Trek, but they don't want to watch it or support it with a click. They'd like to hear what's going on, but they have absolutely no desire to watch it. They have a reverse desire to watch it, but they want to hear how dumb it is. They want to feel validated in their decision to walk away from it. And, 716 people have joined me over it, and I thank them all. And I thank Doomcock for having me on to talk about it. I love the older Star Trek so much more. We've had you guys on, and
It's
had
just
great
good stuff.
Star Trek conversations.
Yeah, Keith and I took over your show that one night.
That was great.
You and Doomcock, that must be an interesting show because you two sound too much alike.
I know. Well, the first time,
been
Tom,
told
that I
that,
met
yeah.
Teague, I thought it was Doomcock fucking around with a whole new persona. I'm like going,
all right, guys, I guess it's time to drop the mask and just let it be known. I am Doomcock.
You need to
and I
do
just
that
was
with,
like
with
waiting
the
for you
Iron Man video.
to like reveal that you were a Doomcock. And then I'm like, oh shit, this guy really isn't Doomcock. How does he sound so much like him? It's weird. But January is going to be interesting.
Talked about Star Trek. It was like we thought alike about it too. It was like we had some Wi-Fi connection on the Star Trek thing.
Tom and I are going to do The Thing this month, January, for the new year. I'm not sure what we're going to do for our second show, but on the other shows, I'm going to be celebrating Cary Grant because it's January is his birth month, and I am a big Cary Grant fan, and I love that new miniseries that they just put out with Jason Isaacs. Spot on, really good story.
I just heard about that. Yeah.
Oh my god, I fucking loved it. Dude.
Good. It's good.
I've always felt connected to Cary Grant because I grew up with such a fucked up childhood, and he had, but I had no idea just how fucked up his was. Good God, they really let you know in this miniseries the shit that was done to him by his parents. And I think his mother was unwittingly so. His father is more the malevolent character because he was a narcissist and he was out for his own interests. Didn't give two shits about his kid. But we're going to do a couple of movies. I'm going to do North by Northwest, and I forget what the other one is, but it's one of his class. Oh, Charade. I'm going to do North by Northwest and Charade. And what's funny about that is Alfred Hitchcock. I get two fucking movies, Teague. Jesus Christ. I get two fucking movies for the month. I'm picking my two favorites. But what's interesting about those two films is that Hitchcock directed North by Northwest, but Charade is considered the Hitchcock film that was not directed by Hitchcock. It was a different director altogether, but it's absolutely a Hitchcock film or a Hitchcockian film. And it's a great flick with Audrey Hepburn. And it was towards the end of his career, because he was getting to a point where he just didn't feel comfortable as a leading man. He says, I'm getting older. I shouldn't be getting the girl.
When's his last movie? 70, 71?
No,
he's
60.
Consistent.
It was with Jim Hutton, and I can't remember the female. And in the end, he doesn't get the girl. He lets Jim Hutton's character get the girl at the end. He's sort of like the person who brings them together.
We would need every minute of Cary Grant month to do justice to Cary Grant. He did so many movies, and I don't think he ever was in a movie that lost money or something.
Well, I'm probably going to do some Military Monday stuff with him because he did a couple of military films.
Gunga Din.
Operation Petticoat.
That's a good one. Mrs. C is in Operation Petticoat.
Yes,
from
she
Happy
is.
Days.
Yes,
Marion
she is.
Ross.
She's great.
I love that movie.
Martin, Information Man show. Oh, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hello.
And of course, we didn't say hi to Mrs. A. I'm sorry about that. Hi, Mrs. A. Good to see you. Bringing Up Baby is a classic film. I love that film. That is the movie where he liked to play with the gay rumor with him. And he was not gay ever.
Yeah, he was quite the opposite.
You know, in fact, he won a lawsuit against Chevy Chase when Chevy Chase alluded he was on the Tomorrow Show with Tom Snyder, and he sued him and won. I am not gay, but the fact is he liked playing with it, and so in the movie Bringing Up Baby, he's wearing a woman's robe with the frothy, whatever you call that, the fluffy, not frothy, fluffy collar and cuffs and shit, and clearly a woman's gown. And this old woman keeps asking, why are you wearing that? And he just jumps up in the air. And he says, because I just suddenly went gay. That is so fucking funny. And he was full of meta humor. The best meta humor. He was the Deadpool of his day. You go back and watch his film, His Girl Friday. The meta jokes in that film, and they're delivered so quickly that you have to watch it 3 or 4 times to get the jokes, because they were doing layered dialogue where people are talking over each other. And you go back and listen to something he says, and my favorite moment is when the guy says, you can't do that. And he goes, the last person who said that to me was Archie Leach before I cut his throat.
Yeah.
And he is Archie Leach.
He mentions Archie Leach and Arsenic and Old Lace as well.
Yes. I love that movie.
That's a great movie.
Out of film because Boris Karloff was originally supposed to be cast as the brother. And they ended up getting Massey, Robert Massey, I think his name is, to play the part, and they made him look like Boris Karloff.
I love the beginning of that movie where they just show everyone getting into a vicious, crazy brawl at Dodger Stadium or whatever it's called, Ebbets Field, and they're like, meanwhile, back in America, and it's just like 25 feet away in another part of Brooklyn.
And meanwhile, in America, people think that meta humor is like something new. No, it's existed, for a long time. And Cary Grant was a master of meta humor in his movies. But let's wrap this show up. Tom, any last thoughts on this movie you'd like to mention?
No, I could go on forever about it. I think we should save it for the sequel.
Okay. And we will do that one. Just like we keep bumping these shows to do the sequels to Beverly Hills Cop. And
well, now we actually know when Beverly Hills Cop 4 is coming out. So that's a big
thing. We should line it up with it. I agree with you.
Now because that comes out in August. We know that now. So
I'm going to bump those to August, both of them. And I do look forward to it because despite a lot of the criticism, I still enjoyed Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed.
It has some
Beverly
stuff
Hills
we can
Cop
talk
2.
about. That's for sure.
And now with Beverly Hills Cop 2, wasn't it Tony Scott that directed that?
Yep.
Yeah. And it feels like a Tony Scott film. And I think that's my problem with it. It doesn't feel like a Beverly Hills Cop film enough to me. It feels like a Tony Scott film. Yeah. But the third film felt like a Beverly Hills Cop film. It was fun. And silly.
Well, 2 and 3 both have issues, but
yeah, neither of them are as good as the first film, period.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing that they did with 48 Hours. Like the second film, another 48 Hours. I was mad at that movie because they made Brian James' character a bad guy. What was his name? Kehoe.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh man, I like Kehoe. Made him a bad guy. And so, because I knew in real life, I knew Brian James. He was a really sweet guy because of my association with Blade Runner and all that shit. But I met him and his family. Great people.
Many great movies. He's in so many great movies. Fifth Element, Blade Runner. My God.
Yeah, the funny thing in Fifth Element is Tiny List. Is that it? Tiny Lister?
Tiny Lister is the president of the world or whatever.
Couldn't understand a fucking thing he said. He sounded like he had a marbles in his mouth when he talked in that movie. I'm like, what did he just say? I had to go back and get subtitles so I knew what the fuck he said. But I loved him as an actor. As Debo in Friday. Fucking,
he's great.
Chris Tucker going, you got knocked the fuck out.
He's in a John Candy movie where he's hilarious.
Oh, man. We lost him a few years back. Man. I hate it when we lose some great actors. It sucks when they die young. But that's it for the show. Thanks for watching Tom and me today. And of course, our amazing panel. We had Admiral Teague, Martina Costa Santana, and of course, Shinatsky. Or as I called him last night during the show, Shitnatsky.
Oh, ow. Thanks for having me. It was an honor, by the way.
Oh, of course. As always, Teague. Good to have you, buddy.
Thanks.
Join us
Happy New
again
Year
in
to
2
everyone.
weeks when Tom and I talk about another great film, which I'm not sure. What are we going to talk about in 2 weeks, Tom? Do we know?
I'm not sure yet. Let me think on that.
Because
I always end up. I like to be.
Oh,
the thing is I like to be able to. Yeah, I know we want to do that one. I like to be able to watch it, so I'll try to work that in my schedule. This is one of those few movies I've seen enough times that I don't have to have watched it just before doing the stream. But
yeah, we have Close Encounters as one of the films we plan to do with you and me. The Thing, Beverly Hills Cop 2 and 3, And I think that's all I've got listed right now. And then I've got some other films I'm probably going to bump to next Halloween. Because I want to have our buddy from Fanzine on to talk about Rockula, if you remember that movie. Do you like that movie?
I haven't. I haven't seen it since like way forever ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've watched it, and I've got it in my queue to watch with Anima. Because I'm like, I enjoyed this because Thomas Dolby did the soundtrack, and he's in the movie.
Yeah, I'm sure I can think of a few things, maybe.
Yeah. So, but that's it for us today, guys. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Please enjoy your Saturday. Be safe, and Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year to everyone.
See you guys next year. Right?
Peace.
Oh, wait. I got to start the video, don't I? Oh, yeah, I got to do that. I have to think on my feet and talk and also remember to do the credits.
Good
This
going,
time we really
Butterfinger.
mean it.
That's it. Show's over.